Where the hell are we here? Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Monday in the Riv. And we have a lot to talk about, but I think let's start with your weekend flush. Then I'll get into my little thing. I like the opening quote. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is you end up being governed by your inferiors. Plato. So, um, for those, we're starting to get our people in now. If you don't know who Plato was, he was the premier philosopher in ancient Greece, and he was actually, because he made so many waves, they basically made him poison himself. And so once we got on Plato again, I started looking up all my old quotes, and he actually, what we're going to segue into shortly is, after your weekend flush, which is pretty clear or unclear, depending on if you're one of the inferiors or not. One of his greatest, I think this may be his greatest quote. We're looking at this today with what's going on in Texas, and the Democrats always yelling about democracy. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery comes out of the most extreme liberty. This is what's happened in the United States. We've gotten, we are so free that it really entices freaking this Reno, and without law and order, we end up with this aggravated where people are always throwing bombs at everybody, and like you can call somebody any name you want, but don't accuse them of being some kind of racist or stuff like that. The other quote that you ended with is a very good quote too. You're doing a lot of political quotes too, obviously. Politics, a strife of interest masquerading as a contest of principles. That's true. The conduct of public affairs for private advantage, and that's what it is. So, I think everybody should read your article. I think it was your flush. You said basically that we had a very lively show, but let me go back to our roots. I think it's time for us to explain to some of these unfortunates that have begun to infiltrate again. And CJ, you give them a lot of airtime. You're a far better man than I am. I would eliminate those people virtually. After one comment, they would be gone because they belong on Facebook. See, Facebook is a place where you go to tell half truths and throw political shitballs and call people names and stuff like that. We started this show 15 years ago with a very simple statement, which should show how bullshit everything that happened on the last show was. We said, we're going to call them like we see them, and don't believe anything we say. Check everything we say. Fact check everything we say. We're not asking you to believe anything. We're telling you what we say. And if we say there's an allegation out there, we have researched the allegation to a degree. Now, we have people that say, look, I got to check. This guy says, well, and I got this and I got this proof. Well, there's no litigation. But this is where these Facebook warriors come in. They like to take half truths and spin them around. Because then they say, well, they got no proof, so that makes them innocent. No, it doesn't. Matter of fact, most of the allegations that happen in Fall River are true. But they don't understand a very simple fact. Because the city settles everything and pays people off and they sign a non-disclosure agreement, does not mean that there is not all kinds of chaos going on in this city. We showed videos on this show of fist fights at Durfee. You remember that, CJ?
Yes, I do. Quite clearly. Quite
Yet,
clearly.
yet no one was ever prosecuted.
That's right.
So
And as
does
a matter
that
of
mean
fact,
that these
Paul
people?
denied it in a school committee meeting.
That's right. He denied it, and we had videos of it. So, this is what they do on Facebook. We're not going to allow that. And the reason that we bring this up, and one of the comments was, you guys are talking about these. Why do you keep bringing it up? Why? Now I'll explain to you, because you're one of the pinheads. You're one of the your keyboard warriors. You like to tell everybody, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do that? Well, I'll tell you, we bring it up to remind the people of everything that's going on behind the scenes in Fall River. We have a cover-up government, the worst in history. Paul Coogan's covered up Malone, sexual harassment. Oh, because there was no prosecutions, the sexual harassment didn't happen? Yes, they did. There are lawsuits. They're going to be settled. They won't even tell you how many lawsuits. So all these things that have happened with the head of security.
And as a matter of fact, Paul Coogan and Bruce Assad lied and said that the city will not be responsible for these lawsuits. The school department will handle it. Who do you think the school department is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there again, Paul Coogan thinks everybody has inferior brains. So listen, this show is about calling it like we see it. If we say there's an allegation, the people who make the allegation, if they've chosen not to pursue it, well, shame on them, because then people will say, well, you didn't have really enough proof. Was it really true? And now it's up to the other guy to say, well, they're full of crap, and let them fight it out. I'm not going to get in the middle of it, because if somebody says this guy did this, we'll say, okay, we'll check and say, well, you showed me some proof, but he hasn't been convicted. But just because of the fact that nobody takes it to trial does not mean that people. We had a city official, John Perry, and a report come out that he violated laws, but he was never taken to court. They made an agreement, they paid him off, and he left. Does that mean it didn't happen? See, Dumbo, that's the point. That's why we bring it up all the time, because there are things going on in this city that are victimizing us, costing us millions of dollars in lawsuits, and in just horrific lack of accountability. And we're going to keep bringing it up. Why? Not to try to convince you, because you're a moron. It's to remind the people that the only way we're ever going to eliminate this is by getting rid of these people and throwing them out of office. Because listen, I don't have to defend myself. I've saved more money for this city than any city official in the history of this city. I'm the guy that got the Canadian healthcare plan that saved us $75 million. I'm the guy that freaking straightens out the healthcare, where if you're in Diamond, you're paying 36% more for your healthcare than we are. And if you're a city employee, you have benefited from all the work. I was on all afternoon with healthcare estimates for all over the state, because we're renewing healthcare. I don't get a job by the Board of Elections during election day, and neither does any of my family. See, people like you are looking for political favors all the time are different. I don't. I live just the opposite kind. They tried to screw me out of my captain's job when I was number one on a list, and I had to threaten to take him. They actually did enter into trying to screw me out of my district chief's job. It was all over the newspaper. They ended up admitting it in court, and I got the job. I didn't kiss anybody's ass. I took a test for every rank. I took a test to get on the job. So when kiss asses and keyboard warriors want to get into this bullshit, we're not talking about that. You make your own decisions. We said that on the first show 15 years ago. We're going to tell you what we think. We're going to tell you what other people say. But don't come around and try to say, oh, you didn't sue BCC. Yeah, you're right. I don't have the money. You're going to tell me about lawsuits? Nobody sued the city of Fall River more than I have. When I was the head of the union, I don't know how many unfair labor practices we sued, and we won every single one of them. We sued them on the contracts. We went to the JLMC. But I had a lawyer, and we had union dues. If I had the money, I would sue them in a heartbeat. CJ sued the city. You won, didn't you, CJ?
Yes, I did.
If you got the money, you can win. I don't have the money. And CJ doesn't have the money to sue Bristol Community College because it's a real simple matter. That's a state institution. They're going to use my tax dollars to take it to the Supreme Court. So I got to pay a lawyer to take it to the Supreme Judicial Court. That's going to cost, I don't know, $100,000?
Easily.
We got a lawyer, but we're way down on a totem pole. They got multi-million-dollar cases against states. But listen, let's use your logic. Just because they went out, they're not found guilty, they weren't guilty. So that's the logic of an imbecile. Because everybody knows that there are a lot of innocent people in jail, and there are a lot of guilty connected politicians never go to jail.
That's
no
right.
matter what they do. Virtually no matter what they do. Very rarely do politicians go to jail. Bob might have did a little time, but that's
I
it.
want to remind you of something.
What?
Jazel Correa, long before the major press outlets, the Herald News, Channel 10, Channel 12, Channel 6, long before Boston stations were saying that Jazel Correa was under federal investigation, we
Right.
said it. And we said it was an allegation. But we were right. Okay?
Yeah.
Nobody said we were right. They just said, we're out to get him. We're no good.
And you know, I'm going to wrap this up with going back to that second quote, because this is exactly what people like this do. They have a different scale. To me, it's supposed to be about ethics. And if you don't have character and ethics, as Lincoln said, you know, it's what you do when nobody's looking. Well, you don't let anybody look if you're Paul Coogan and these politicians, but they have a different scale. If somebody does something wrong, but never gets found guilty because they never prosecuted or they made a deal or they paid somebody off, still makes him an unethical, guilty person. But politicians have a different scale. And I'm going to read you that quote and really, this one really hits it. I don't know, it must have had karma. You picked this great. Politics is a strife of interests masquerading as a contest of principles, which means they have none. The conduct of public affairs, it's the conduct of public affairs for private advantage. Guess what? They all have private advantage. Paul Coogan gets to cover up all this shit and pretend it didn't happen because they weren't convicted. But who pays for it? We do. Every time they settle a lawsuit, it's in our tax bill. You won't say that. We're here to remind the people of that, and we'll keep reminding them of it until they finally get their asses out and vote. Because that's what you got to do. And with that, CJ, I'm done. Because 15 years ago, we told you don't have to believe everything we say, but we can prove. If we say it's a fact, we'll prove it. If we say it's our opinion, we'll tell you. If we say it's an allegation, we will characterize it as an allegation. But don't try to make somebody innocent because they weren't convicted in a court of law. A lot of rapists are walking around because they were sons of millionaires. There's a lot of criminals walking around because they could hire big-time lawyers. Look at what's his name up in Newport there. The guy that killed Klaus von Bülow. Remember him?
I remember that.
He got convicted of murdering his wife. Then he's got enough money to go hire one of the greatest lawyers in history. He beat it on a technicality.
That's right.
Alan Dershowitz was his lawyer on appeal. Dershowitz found a technicality. Listen, you may believe a guy who murdered 28 people in McDonald's years ago was not guilty because his case was dismissed because the cop Mirandized him the wrong way. There are 28 families who died, who had children or family members die. I think they think he's guilty. And we got a lot of crime being committed and a lot of things that are unacceptable that the taxpayers are paying for. And in a city like Fall River should not be happening. And we're here to tell you. Oh, yeah, there you go, Stevie. Thanks for reminding me. Chappaquiddick. There you go. That's a great one, Steve. Yeah, remember that? You try to drive drunk, drown somebody in your car, then show up the next day when you're sober and nobody does anything. Guess what? The Kennedys paid him off. There was no prosecution in that case ultimately. He left the... You imagine you driving shit-face, off a bridge and leave somebody in the car and then go to the next day and say, by the way, I'm turning myself in. I already got a breathalyzer test at home, so I'm clean right now, and I got plenty of money. This is why we hate politicians. This is why we do what we do. Not to listen to keyboard warriors that want to go on there and go, oh, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you're a Nazi, or you're a fascist, and you're a... No, I'm just an iconoclast. Look that one up in a dictionary. And, so if you want to call me something, don't call me a racist, or which I'm not, or things that I'm not. Call me what I am. If you want to think I'm an asshole, good. Call me an asshole, because a lot of people think I am. And I think a lot of people are assholes too. But that's okay. But I'm not a racist or a misogynist. I can't be a misandrist because I'm not a woman, but that's the female version of it to add to your vocabulary. But this is it. So this is what we do. So back into the politics. We've got some political candidates. We're going to try to start getting these people on the air and talk to them straight up. And I think you said you had a conversation earlier today, actually.
Yes, I did. I had one with Chris Sylvia.
Yeah.
And I guess he read the Weekend Flush. He appreciates the Weekend Flush, what was said in it. And I acknowledged his position. But as I said in the Weekend Flush, and as I will say again, okay, I could have a check in my hand for $3,500 that's made out to somebody. And people are claiming that it should have been made out to somebody else. Well, it wasn't made out to somebody else. They cashed the check. That's the position. So unless the writer of the check or the person who was harmed by it comes forward, name and all, there's nothing I can say further than I've got a check. I can give you the rumors, which we've already done. Doesn't mean they're false, because remember, I'm going to bring back Jason Correa. Under Jason Correa, we were told we were wrong, we were lying, we were all kind. I can't even think of the number of names we were called. More F-bombs were dropped against us than I can remember. Remember that shit? Okay, because the Jesus supporters walked blindly, following him like the Pied Piper of Hamlet.
Yeah,
and
but
all those people hated us. All of them. And then, when Jason was taken out in handcuffs from his house by the FBI, nobody said, oh, you guys were right. Nobody said, oh, you guys are right. Oh, how did you know? We researched it. We looked into it.
Bully. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Who got called a bully? Oh, Josh. By the way, Josh, if you're on, you might still be working because you actually have a real job. But if you're watching, we heard you got called a guy. Yeah, that's exactly. You're shooting a messenger. But listen, this is a problem with politics, Amy. Listen, this is an issue. Now, you got one person alleging that check should have been made out to him. The other guy says, no, it was made out to me so I can cash. Look, That is maybe a legal question, but that's something that's really a non sequitur. It's not really something you should be concerned with. This is why we hate politics so much, because only in politics would this be used against somebody. Because if you and your neighbor have an argument, or somebody did that to you, you just say, okay, I'm going to go to small claims court, or I'm going to go to court, and I'm going to prove I'm right. And if you don't do that, it means you didn't have enough proof. It's done. We're talking about serious shit on this show. We're talking about fist fights at Durfee, rapes, sexual harassment, age discrimination, burying toxic chemicals in the ground. Are you listening, Dumbo? Are you listening to what I'm saying? Can you see the difference between that apple and that kumquat you're talking about? This is bullshit. This only happens in politics. That's why you got to just, there's an allegation, you vet the candidate. Do what we told you on our first show. Investigate him. Call him up. Walk into his restaurant. Grill him. I had a guy ask me for a signature for school committee. What did I do? I said, I'll sign it because I sign anybody's papers. I think everybody has a right to run. But I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. He said, go ahead. I said, are you in favor of the way that the school committee spends its money? He said, no. He said, do you think that citizens should have full disclosure? He said, yes. I said, okay, I'll consider you for a vote. I'll look at the rest of your platform. You're going to talk about bullshit like this, like make it a big deal. That's a deflection from the fact that our city's in a toilet, that we've got, today, I drove up to take the dog for a walk at BCC. On the way up, there's two nitwits on unregistered motorcycles again, driving up both lanes, holding both lanes up when I was traveling north. I take the dog for a walk. They were actually going south. I was going north. I apologize. So they were on the other side. So they were going south. I took the dog for a walk. I come back. I'm driving back down Eastern Avenue. They're going north, holding up traffic again. This is Fall River. Well, why? Where's all the police down on a rail trail? We got a city that's in chaos. We've got allegations that have actually been proven because these people have admitted it, and they left. If they were not guilty, a year with pay and then retire. Get out of town. So, but this is the insanity of these people that are on. That's why I don't do Facebook. You're asking me why I don't do. This is why. I'm not going to engage people like this. They're nitwits. It's like you're going to talk about somebody screws you out of a check. It was like some guy. I sold him a car. I felt bad for him. He was on a department with me. Told me he'd pay me in payments. He was going through a divorce. He didn't have a lot of money. He didn't pay me. So I said, hey, pay me the money. He said, oh, I don't have it now. I said, well, I gave him enough time. I said, look, either pay me the money, you got the car, so you owe me a few $100. So what I'm going to do is the next time you're on duty, I'm going to go in there and put 4 spikes in all your tires, and you'll pay more for the new tires than if you pay me. So he paid me. So that's, but that's a political issue now. If I ran for, but no, this is bullshit. They make bullshit. Remember the guy who ran for president? I forgot his name. He was on a yacht with some girls. The hell was his name? He didn't even get the nomination because of that, but I forgot his name. But this is the kind of crap that they talk about. They forgot that we ran videos of the fights that Paul denied, of fist fights at Durfee. We had mothers. I've had parents call me, and you have too, of students that have been sexually harassed. We have a lawsuit being filed that alleges the sex of a school department employee with a student. Now, it's an allegation. They must have some proof. It'll be adjudicated in court. I'm not saying it's true or untrue, but I know some are true. And they've made settlements on it. And this will probably be settled out of court too.
Of course.
That they will not, just like everything else. And then they'll say, The keyboard warriors and the political kiss asses when they're working at the polls, how much ass did you kiss? How many of your families in the school department? How many of your who took over a union? Who took over a union and then got a $20,000 pay raise? But did they sell out their union? Of course they did. And that's happened frequently lately. Mike Coogan took over a union and then sold his membership out to become the chief of the department. He lasted 13 days because he jumped all the people who actually took a test and earned to be up there. He couldn't even pass a captain's test. But this is the kind of shit you're going to try to throw? You got no ammunition. You make mountains out of molehills. We talk about shit that's happening. Let the people decide every candidate. Well, I'm going to tell you for the first time in 15 years who I'm supporting. I can tell you people who I'm supporting right now. I am supporting Michelle Dion without a doubt. I'm supporting Colin Byers. I'm supporting Kevin Aguirre. And you said you ran into him today. John Sylvia is running for school committee. I will support him because listen, John and I disagree on a lot of things.
You two have had almost a knockdown drag out.
Yeah.
I remember
John
that.
and I had we've had some serious, very lively debates. But
Especially during the recall.
But I respect John. John is a man who will, he knows numbers and he'll do a good job. That's just my opinion. I'm not asking you anybody else. And also, what's your name? The one that was up for superintendent of schools. I vetted her record before. I don't know her first name, but you remember the one that was up for superintendent, didn't get it?
Right, not Riley's wife.
Yeah, Kyle Riley.
Ann Riley. Ann Riley.
Ann was an Ann. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm bad for names. I'm good for faces, but bad for names. I don't know. If I don't see you all the time.
She's running for school committee.
Yeah, but we vetted her when she was up for superintendent. She has impeccable qualifications. Yeah. Thank you, Bernadette. Yeah, she has impeccable. I mean, she was a great superintendent in another district. I mean, here we go again. We're talking logic to people who have no logic. You can't talk to people like that, and we're going to start arguing over some crap that should be in small claims court, rather than the fact that our school department is hiding everything from us, and we have bobbleheads on there that aren't doing. Like I said, I mean, she's got my vote. I've already vetted her. I know the qualifications she had for superintendent. As a matter of fact, if my memory serves me correctly, didn't the teachers union endorse her for superintendent?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
And heaven forbid we listen to the school teachers.
That's right. That's right.
So
and Paul deliberately put in one of his puppets.
Yeah.
One of his puppets. And her answer when a tough question comes up is, I'm not answering that question. I'm removing it from the table. I'm removing my response from the table. I'm not answering that question. That is inappropriate. That is inappropriate.
Or it's out of
He
order.
tries to deflect every serious question posed.
Yeah.
Even when it's generalized and not directed at her.
Yeah, but that's not the, that is not the, that is so wrong on every level. Number one, she's not chairing a meeting. She can't say it's out of order or it's not appropriate. And number one, she can't say it's not appropriate because we've got a Supreme Court decision that says you can basically say anything you want.
That's right.
Unless you're threatening physical violence. So number one, she's violating a Massachusetts Supreme Court decision that says you can say anything you want to them. And she's also violating the law, which says our Constitution says that they are answerable to us at all times. Yeah, but they're all idiots. And now I will read you something from the article from, just so you know, I'm not making this crap up. So unlike the other people, we don't just, and it's from the Cornell Law School, Legal Information Institute. I get all my stuff from Cornell mostly. And this is about
not that they're reputable. Not that they're reputable or reliable.
I know, they're not reputable. It's only an Ivy League school. Okay. Duty of care. The duty of care requires that the directors inform themselves prior to making a decision of all materials and information reasonably available to them. All material. So every time Colin Dyers asks a question and wants numbers and you deny him, you're violating the duty of care as a fiduciary. And that came from a court case, Smith versus Van Gorkum, 488, 858, 1985. Now, whether the directors are informed of all materials depends on the quality of information and the advice available, and whether the director had, quote, sufficient opportunity to acquire knowledge concerning the problem before action. You've got to give them sufficient knowledge to make a decision. You don't give Colin and Kevin that. And that's from Moran versus Household, Intern Inc., 490, 1059, 85. And now, moreover, a director may not simply accept the information presented. Are you listening to this, Shelley? Are you listening to this, Tommy? Are you listening to this, you boneheads on the school committee that are violating, that you're malfeasant every time your ass hits that chair as a public official? Moreover, you may not simply accept the information presented. Rather, the director must assess the information with a, quote, critical eye, unquote, so as to protect the interests of the stockholders, i.e. the taxpayers. Smith versus Van Gorham, 488, 858, 85. This argues that notwithstanding the proliferation and usefulness of government ethics codes, common law fiduciary duty principles continue to play an important role in the shaping of governmental ethics, regardless of whether specific rules of government or ethics have been adopted. Remember that, regardless of whether they've been adopted, public officials have a broad fiduciary duty to carry out their responsibilities in a manner that is faithful to the public trust and has been reposed in them. The duties of public officials may extend beyond minimal compliance of the rules. You a-holes have been violating your fiduciary, and I wish, Bozo from Facebook, that we had the money, because every day I got scratch tickets I got the Powerball tickets in my wallet right now. One of these days, you better hope I never hit, because I will sue everybody on that school committee that's been sitting on their ass, and I am filing a complaint with all this stuff, but it's going to go nowhere, because I'm filing a public complaint with public officials against other public officials. You know where that goes? Nowhere. But look, this is not my words. These are court cases from the Cornell School of Law, and they are case precedents. You people with your bullshit, that's why I don't do Facebook. I can't stand it. No, he should. He should. He should bring that law with him and pass it out before every meeting and after every meeting and mark down how many times they violate the law, which is every single time they open their mouth.
Well, it's real interesting, as I wrote in the Weekend Flush, about candidates coming out with their campaign kickoffs a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks before an election. The primary is in what, 4 weeks?
Yeah.
And you have 3 mayoral candidates coming out to announce their candidacies, okay, having a fundraiser, and all saying the same thing. I am not going to use buzzwords, or I'll talk with you about my plan. You're not going to talk to me about your plan. You're going to talk to the people, the voters. They all have a right to know what your plan is. I'm tired of hearing from candidates, I'm not going to present political buzzwords. At least it's something. At least it's something. Better than the silence that's coming out of two camps off the top of my head.
Well, the other two are really fringe candidates. The other two. The fact is, the only candidate that it shows a very, very, at least to me, maybe I'm crazy, but we ran a recall that was the first successful one in a long time, and we spent a lot of time on that because I think that 4 weeks doesn't show a hell of a lot of interest in getting that office.
No.
That's quite a very short time to show people that what you got. Because if you got something to show, you should be knocking on doors a year before, 6 months before.
The only candidate,
as far as I know, the only candidate that has actually been out door knocking is Carlos Caesar.
Yes.
And he's also the only one that's put forth a promise, and we'll have to classify it as that. Everything is a promise, unless you're an incumbent and do it. To immediately conduct a forensic audit of the city, and so did Chris Peckham mention that as a councilor. He's going to send a resolution, but that resolution, unless we change the council, hopefully we will, that will go nowhere, but hopefully it will. Hopefully we'll have a mayor that will do a forensic audit, and we'll have a council that will support the forensic audit. Not say, oh, it's too expensive. Oh, no, we just blew $2 million on healthcare and $3 million on trash because we didn't listen to people 6 years ago who predicted this would happen. I being one of them, on the healthcare, verbatim what happened 6 years before it happened. And I am not a psychic, maybe a psycho, but not a psychic. But the fact is that I knew it was going to happen because it was common sense. If you don't keep enough money, healthcare is definitely going to. Even though imagine how much we would have been in a hole if we were Diamond or one of the other cities in this Commonwealth. We had cities who are paying from anywhere from 36 to 50% more than we're paying for our same healthcare plan, all because of the hard work of the people on the Public Employee Committee and to oversee the. But imagine that $2 million would have been $4 million we were in the hole, or $7 million we were in the hole, because of lack of fiduciary responsibility and ignoring that somebody told you. I wrote it in a letter. I said it. There will come a point in time where you will not be able to fund your share. Employees can't because we kept it. This is what's going on in the city. I don't know how anybody conceivably can consider a vote for Paul Coogan unless they got a job or they were promised a job or, they're related to him. And even then, I wouldn't vote for him. Well, I'm wired differently. I wouldn't vote for, if I had a brother, I wouldn't vote for him if he wasn't going to do the right thing as the mayor, so. But I mean, this is crazy. And this is the way they deflect things. They talk about minutia, just stuff that's inane. Inane means it's nothing. It's you're going to argue over, I got to check, he's got to check. Okay, they made an allegation. They say maybe his credibility could be in question. Well, question him. I mean, if that's going to swing I'll tell you what. We've had mayors that were ethical and unethical, but I didn't care. As long as they didn't rob from the people. If they ran the city okay, well, look, we had a mayor that was convicted of doing something that had nothing to do with the city. He was running the city pretty decently. You look at Buddy Cianci. Buddy Cianci was doing a good job in running the city, but as that quote said, you're doing public for private interest. So he took care of himself. He got busted and he came out, but then he learned and he got reelected and he led a renaissance in Providence. But listen, this whole thing is BS. It's all this massive psychological deflection to try to get you to think about everything except the fact, can this guy do the job? Is he going to say, well, I'm going to go out and get somebody who can run the fire department, who can run the police department, who will give me accurate numbers. I will go out and talk to people who know. Now, if the city council asks me for the numbers and they ignore me, what good is the city council? Now, they can
Right.
come to me and I give them the numbers. If they go to you and ask you a medical question, they should take your advice. You got a PhD in nursing. But this is the problem with the government. You can't have a mayor in there who is going to ignore people who actually know what the hell they're doing. I don't get a plumber who can't fix my plumbing. If the guy walks in and goes, "Oh, is that a sink?" "Oh, yeah, you're out of here, pal. You're not working for me." Why do we elect people into the positions that hold our very life in the balance for safety?
Well, Dave Olivera has an comment about that.
Well,
First off, he says, and this goes back a little ways. He's on YouTube. Mark Mollicone. But he says, Ann Riley, Colin, John, Kevin, and I have right now. That's who he has right now. He says, $80 comedy show, LOL. And then he says, a vote for Coogan is a vote for Fiola. That's who you're electing.
well, that's true. Yeah, the true words were never spoken.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, it's so obvious that. Well, look, how many names have we got for him, Mister? It's Mister. I'm a vice principal, Mister. I don't know numbers, Mister. I don't know anything about pot, Mister. I'm not good with numbers. Well, fundamentally, you just said there's nothing you can do.
That's right.
Except walk around Durfee and high five students and tell them to drop out of school if you don't like them, or cover up for them if you do like them. I mean, I don't know. This is what you elect to run your city. This is the thing that boggles my mind. It's like these jobs are important. Look what they're doing in Washington. They say, "Oh, national politics." Well, look from national politics. All the shit they've exposed. And it's like Trump. A lot of people hate Trump. I don't like a lot of the shit that he does. You're right. At least he's a loser. But the guy just ended a war that lasted in Armenia and Azerbaijan for the last 30 years. He ended a war that was in the Congo for 35 years. He's ended wars all over the world. Why? Not because he's a genius, but because he knows how to use political leverage. And the United States is a powerful country. Do you realize that this is the first president I can ever remember that's used the power of the American economy to help people in other countries by stopping wars? This is amazing what he's actually done. Now, granted, he hasn't stopped the other one, but yeah. Okay, Christopher is the next Trump. Okay, yeah. Well, he's not exactly a billionaire. I think that's kind of like comparing a gnat with a is the next Zelensky. Okay. All right. So the next Zelensky. All right. Well, if we're going to get foreign aid, well, maybe if he's Zelensky, I'll tell you.
Hold on 1 second. Fall River Raw. Either use your real name or you will be blocked. I'm not going to allow pseudonyms or hidden pages to be used. Use your real name or you will be blocked. And I don't like blocking people.
And Donald Duck will not be accepted as a real name.
That's right.
But they can make up a pseudonym anyway. But who gets you? At least put a name. Okay.
I know who it is, Leary. Okay? You've tried to cause problems before. Not going to happen. Use your real name or don't bother coming on here.
And listen, if you could get somebody like Zelensky as mayor, he's strong-armed a lot of money from the United States and Europe.
Yes, he has.
Maybe that's not a bad idea. And by the way, Mr. Leary, was your father's name Bill? Just a totally non-political question. All right, you're not answering. It's a personal question. I can see if you don't want to answer it. Charles.
No,
okay.
he said it was Charles.
Oh, because I went to school with a Bill Leary, so I was just wondering if he was any relation to you, because he was actually a pretty good friend of mine. Oh, that's good. Yeah, yeah. Well, good for him. Yeah, that Somerset. Oh, he would be 90. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's. Yeah, but Bill was a good friend of mine. I was just wondering if you were related to him. He was a. We went to school. We went to high school together, and we were pretty good friends. Actually, I had a lot of friends from up in Corking Road at the time. So
Hey, Paul Coogan's good at hitting pop cars, according to David Oliveira.
yeah, yeah. But listen, we got to just elect a politician that's got a platform, but at least make them at least make them tell you they're gonna. I mean, just these generalizations and euphemisms. Are just you can't buy that. I'm going to fix the city. Well, that's a great that's a great thing to say. I'm going to fix. But how are you going to do it? You actually first of all, I'm not going to entertain any candidate for mayor that's not going to tell me he's not going to first find out where all our money is. You need an audit and a real audit, not the BS ones we get. We need a real audit from an independent auditing firm. And if you're a candidate and tell me I'm going to go in there and take their numbers, for crying out loud, look at a council meeting. They go up there. They haven't given a number in 10 years. That's an accurate number. They actually go up there and tell you these numbers are strictly for discussion. These numbers are just projections. No, I just read you the law. You're supposed to be giving them the accurate numbers. They're our fiduciaries. The city council is the ways and means. The law says you have to look beyond with a critical eye. You people are malfeasant. You're not doing your job. You cannot let a city administrator or a CFO go up there and tell you these numbers are for discussion only. You got to tell them, get your ass back up to the 6th floor and bring us down hard numbers. We never got a number for discussion from Bob Connors. I'm not asking for something that's impossible to get.
Not one city councilor has ever said to any chief of staff, interim CFO, treasurer, assessor, leave and get me the numbers now. You know why? Because they won't get backed up by any of the other city councilors. Because none of them have a backbone. They're all ballless. All of them.
Well, listen, even Mary Sahadi, and believe me, Mary
She had me
Sahadi,
put on the spot.
but the difference was she knew the numbers. She never went up there and said this number was. She gave a number like the 45 million. It was a lie. She padded it. I told them that. They pressed her. It was revealed. But you know what they should have done then? When Gallagher walked up there and said, no, the number is 40 million, and she said, well, it is 40 million, but I added 5 million of other things. Well, you can't add it. That line item was for the cost of the healthcare premiums. You can't add that 5 million because the 40 million was for the healthcare premium. And she said, yeah, okay, they're right. Well, they should have said, okay, with all due respect, Ms. Sahadi, CFO, as the CFO, we want you to leave the chamber and we want you to come back at the next meeting. We're tabling this, and every number you bring down better be the accurate number with nothing added except what it's going to cost for that line item. That's what should have been said at the council meeting. They should have.
All you do is look at these department heads. The EMS director, Beth. Okay, she turned around. She knew she was going to need over $200,000 to rent the garage. She put out the RFP. It was due in June. That was before the budget was discussed. It should have been included in the budget.
Yeah.
If the city council had a backbone, they'd turn around and say, you did not present this in your budget. You're not getting it. Wait till next year. That's what they should have done.
it seems like it was in the dinosaur era, but and probably it was because I rode a dinosaur to work a few times, but there were still a couple around. Uh, but the reality is, I remember when Alan Sylvia became the first, not rep, Alan Sylvia, the Harvard MBA. Uh, I remember when he became the first city administrator, and he went down there and he could. Yeah, I mean, he never gave you a number that wasn't carved in stone. He could talk about the numbers down to the penny on every line item in the budget. He could state it. They were afraid to ask him questions. He was so thorough, and everything was on the money. Everything was on the money, always, always. Then he got replaced by Bob Connors, and Bob Connors was not Harvard MBA, but had a lot of experience in bargaining and negotiating and stuff, and he knew how to get the numbers, and he made sure those numbers were accurate for every contract, everything in the budget. And when he appeared before the council, we had done numbers right on the money. Then we had Jim Smith, not quite as good as Connors, but still fairly effective. No hypothetical numbers, no projected numbers, no numbers just for discussion. Real hard numbers. That's what you're supposed to have. You can't have those in your budget. I don't know about you, but I can't have hypothetical numbers in my budget. I can't say, well, hypothetically, I got $200 in my wallet, and when I get to the cash register, they go, well, how much you got? I got $21. Well, can't have the rest of the stuff. Yeah, but wait, hypothetically, I had $200 in my wallet. That's the end of that story. I'm done. Only government can do that. But then after Jim Smith, we started. We hired a mall manager. Then we got Sahadi, and Sahadi was good with numbers, but she fudged them. So she had an issue with being honest. And then it got back to what, CJ? The city council doing their due diligence to check the numbers. And they didn't do it.
That's right.
It's not our job to check their numbers. It wasn't my job to be texting them at the council meeting, telling them that it was 40 million. I sent them a letter saying that, and they never read the things. I said, it's not 45 million, it's 40 million. But this is not our job. But then we had the mall manager. Then we had Mary. Mary was good with numbers. If you pressed her, she'd give you accurate. But after her, oh, forget it. These people, they look like deer in headlights when they're down there. How many times did that new one have to go down before she finally had some numbers she could actually, and they weren't even hard numbers, but they were just numbers. 2 or 3 times before she finally could make some kind of presentation that was semi-coherent. But listen, this is what we're voting for, guys. In the next election, vote for whoever you want, but hopefully what you'll use as a criteria is that they gave me some answers that I can live with. And you're not going to agree with everybody 100%. Look, CJ and I don't agree on everything 100%. But the reality is that I want somebody to tell me, like I said, as far as the mayor is concerned, council's a little different. I want to see a different, I'm going to ask them a little different kind of thing. But to me, I want a mayor that's going to tell me that our budget has been a disaster for decades, and the only way to fix your budget is actually know how much money you got and where it is. And if you're not going to conduct a real audit, not by some politician or some political body, because remember something, for the record, our city is audited every single year, and the healthcare, by statute, as just a healthcare system, is supposed to be audited every year by statute. And you know who audited our city for a zillion years? Hagen Sahadi. And when we went in front of the arbitrator in '91, they admitted they never did an audit. They just did they did a
reconciliation.
No, they called it twice. They used 2 different terms to the same thing. They did a reconciliation and a recreation, which means that they just made the numbers fit. It wasn't a real audit. And this is the problem. We have to get somebody in there. 827. Oh yeah, I was told about that. I'll be down there in disguise though. I might be wearing a wig. No, I'm only kidding.
They'll never recognize you.
They'll never recognize me. I'm so unrecognizable, especially with
Yeah.
the voice.
Hey, David Oliveira wants to know what's your thoughts of Allison retiring? Well, she's put in 38 long years
Yeah.
with the city of Fall River, has gone through a lot of bullshit with a lot of different mayors and many different city councils. Well, various city councils. And I think that maybe she's just ready to go. She's just ready to say, I'm done. Inez
Yeah.
is going to take over. But again, the city did not look for a replacement. They just automatically chose someone. And this is what creates problems. Not that I'm saying Inez can't do the job. I think Inez is wonderful. I've dealt with Inez an awful lot. I don't have a problem with Inez. But we need to do serious investigation into who we put in these positions.
Well,
Okay? The city's clerk's position seems to be in perpetuity. Once you get it, you never have to worry about it. You're tenured. You stay there for life. That's what it seems.
well,
At one time, I thought Joe Doran was going to die at his desk.
yeah. Well, I was just going to mention Joe Doran. He was there forever, but I'll tell you what, Joe Doran, and I worked with him toward the end of his career. He was one of the most ethical people I ever met. Joe Doran was a great was a was a was a great man. He was as ethical. He would never, he didn't. He gave you the information accurately. He never politicized the office. Joe Doran was a great city clerk, and so far we've had a real good run. I mean, it's a big loss. She's been here for 38 years, and
Yeah.
I've seen her give them opinions that they didn't like to hear on things. She tries to abide by the law. And you're right, Nelson. This city is in chaos. You can't keep good people in this city because there's too much politics. You go in there. I remember they hired somebody that, to me, had a lot of potential. I had a few candid conversations with that person. And within a month, they were looking for another job. And they frankly told me, I can't work here. She said, this is the most political place I've ever seen in my life. I can't work here. She said, they don't give you any information. You got to worry about everything, everybody you talk to. Yeah, there's all kinds of pressure being put on people to not do the right thing. She said, I'm out of here. And that individual's husband was a doctor, so I guess she had enough money. She had the luxury, but she lasted about, I don't know, 2 months, 2.5 months, and she was gone. You can't keep people in this city because you got to march the Coogan march. You got to do the goose step. Do bis Coogan, Yinek Vic Coogan, alles for Coogan. That's it, and that's what they got to do. This is like Munich.
It's always something. That's for sure. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great day. And remember, it's going to be hot this week.